stole from me, and I took back my dignity, and I took back my humanity, and it's under my feet, it's under my feet, it's under my feet. Ain't nobody gonna walk all over me.
Great. Okay. Today we have Americans from all over the country. Florida, Michigan,
Pennsylvania,
New York. Americans from all over the country who have come here to Washington, D.C. to hold a people's hearing. Trump is guilty of impeachable offenses, and we, the people, demand that Congress impeach him. Am I right?
yes.
Today is the people's hearing. We have had, in addition to the folks who have come here from all over the country, hundreds and hundreds of Americans have submitted their testimonies in the case for impeachment against Donald Trump. And we are here as a small fraction of the millions of Americans who believe and know that Donald Trump is unfit for office, that he is a danger to our democracy and the American people.
Preach!
So today, we will lay out the case for impeachment. We will name the atrocities committed by the Trump administration, the high crimes and misdemeanors that warrant impeachment. We will lay out the case, and we will demand very loud and clear for our elected representatives that are meant to represent us and defend the Constitution. We will let them know what the will of the people is. It is on us to take responsibility for our country. No one is going to save us. We cannot continue to look to those in power and hope that they are going to feel the moral courage that we need them to show in this moment. We need to show moral courage right now, and that is what we are doing. So today, we are part of the movement of Americans taking responsibility for our country, protecting our democracy, and protecting the American people. Trump will be impeached
By the people!
Trump will be impeached
By the people!
Trump will be impeached
By the people!
So now, I will now turn it over to one of our speakers who is going to lay out the case for impeachment and the impeachable offenses that Donald Trump has committed. And I'm going to invite Lakshmi to go over the case for impeachment with us. Lakshmi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi everyone, my name's Lakshmi Gopal. I'm an organizer with By the People, originally from the Bronx, New York. All right. One moment. Okay. Today, we will speak to you about why impeachment is so critical and what our demands are. It is vital to democracy for the House of Representatives, both as the body of government closest to the people and as the voice of the opposition party majority, to officially declare this president unfit for office and dangerous to this country. This is important regardless of what the Senate does. It would mean that the House of Representatives boldly asserting its legitimate authority to act of its own volition on the public's behalf. It commands the attention of the press to the president's offenses and to the House Democrats act to stop them. It makes the administration spend more money and time and energy on defensive efforts instead of letting them consolidate totalitarian power unimpeded.
Shame.
That's right.
It encourages government officials to disobey illegal and immoral orders. It alerts the public to the gravity of the situation and to the dire need to address it. And it means at least some chance of removing Trump from office as opposed to none without impeachment. With a fascist president whose appointees are corrupting the executive and judicial branches, and with the Senate majority of the same party that has thrown in with the president's bigoted and tyrannical program, the House of Representatives, with its sole power of impeachment, is the only remaining legitimate governmental authority with sufficient power to challenge the president. The House should take its rightful place as the champion of the public and fulfill its responsibility with righteousness. Stopping fascist tyranny takes not appeasement but overt confrontation. The urgency of officially holding Trump to account in public to show the country that his continuation in office is harmful to the country and is illegitimate demands swift action. Every day he's in office means further injustice. more harm to the country and to the world, and more time for the president to further consolidate tactical power. Also, we do not want to hear any excuses about impeachment taking attention from electoral campaigns. Politically, impeachment in the House would mean that the Democrats are taking action for truth, justice, and democracy. We can't rely on a voter-suppressed, hacked, gerrymandered election in 2020 as a fair contest for righting the ship of state. In fact, the lack of consequences for interference in the 2016 election due to not impeaching opens the door to the same and worse in 2020. And Republican senators who refuse to hear the case or who vote against removal would, for their demonstration of subservience to tyranny, face the wrath of the electorate. Here are the 15 of the most important offenses that the Judiciary Committee should consider for articles of impeachment.
Listen up, Judiciary Committee.
We're making it very easy and very clear for you to do your job. Using official power to persecute political adversaries and critics. Attacking the freedom of press. Corruption of electoral process, including the recent news about the president's repeated and persistent attempts to financially extort and bribe Ukraine to investigate matters related to Joe Biden, a potential 2020 election opponent. Abuse of office to promote and act upon racial hostility, personal corruption and self-enrichment, obstruction of justice regarding the Mueller investigation, mistreatment and abuse of immigrants, both those entering the country and those residing here already, malign neglect of public welfare in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, nepotism and corrupt assistance to political allies, malign neglect of administrative duty, reckless and incompetent foreign relations, personal sexual assault, personal financial crimes, environmental destruction, and obstruction and contempt of the impeachment inquiry itself. We must act now.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. One more time. Trump will be impeached
By the people!
Trump will be impeached
By the people!
Trump will be impeached
By the people!
Today is the people versus Trump. This is a people's hearing, considering the impeachment of Donald Trump. We have just heard a count of the impeachable offenses by Donald Trump. So I want to ask the people right now, has Trump committed high crimes and misdemeanors?
Yes!
Has Trump committed impeachable offenses?
Yes!
Has he betrayed the oath of office?
Yes!
Trump will be impeached
By the people!
Make no mistake, impeachment is the people's tool. There is a reason why impeachment is listed within the Constitution to be within the power of Congress. Congress is the people's chamber. We elect those who sit in this office. We tell them what we believe needs to happen. There is a reason why the Constitution does not say the Supreme Court should decide impeachment. There is a reason why it says Congress must understand and identify when high crimes and misdemeanors have been committed. And as we have just heard, Donald Trump has committed high crimes and misdemeanors. And so I want to make it very, very clear. If Congress is refusing to hold Donald Trump accountable, who just this last week committed yet again another impeachable offense, in plain sight, he admitted it on national television just yesterday, yet again adding to the list. If Congress is refusing to do their job, they are abdicating their responsibility. They are failing to fulfill their duty to the American people and to the Constitution. So I say, if by this fall, Congress has not fulfilled their duty to hold Trump accountable, to pursue impeachment, then I believe that those in House leadership should resign or impeach. Impeach or resign.
Impeach or resign! Impeach or resign! Impeach or resign! Impeach or resign!
Donald Trump will be impeached
By the people!
So, we have laid out the case for impeachment. We are clear that it is with Congress's responsibility as the elected representatives of the people to impeach. And now we're going to talk about why it's going to take a movement for us to win. Once again with Lakshmi. Give a round of applause for Lakshmi, everyone.
As Alexandria just said, impeachment is the people's tool. Congress will only act if we, the people, make them. It's going to take millions of Americans demanding their members of Congress, the people who they elected, who work for them, fully commit to their duty and do what's right. this administration continues to hurt communities, especially women of color, immigrants, Black and brown youth, and many more marginalized folks. People in my community, in everyone here's community. We know that when the people lead, politicians will follow. Right now, we need to show our representatives that we will not tolerate a racist, liar, and a cheat in the White House. Because the day we stop fighting for our democracy is the day we lose it.
Thank you. And now I want to invite up Ian to talk about the impeachment of Donald Trump.
Hey everybody, my name is Ian Madrigal. I'm an activist and organizer here in DC. Folks might know me for my creative actions I've done actually in this very building, where I've dressed up as the Monopoly man and sat behind corrupt CEOs, brought some attention to what they were doing. I'm also one of the organizers that was responsible for kicking Kirstjen Nielsen out of a Mexican restaurant days after she announced the child separation policy. So today I want to talk about Congress and how they need to do their job and do what we elected them to do. It's been 976 long days since Donald Trump has been in office. It's nearly 1,000 days of the most corrupt, inept, and destructive presidency this country has ever seen. 2017 feels like a lifetime ago. But do you remember all that we accomplished that year? People organized protests and turned out in demonstrations in the largest numbers this world has ever seen. There was an energy in that moment that is hard to replicate. The outrage was fresh, we were ready to fight, and we were ready to win. But our leaders, many of whom in this building, said no, no, no.
Shame! Shame!
They told us not to worry. They told us our norms would hold and that our institutions would stand strong. They told us to put all of our energy into the 2018 midterms, that the election would save us, that Robert Mueller would save us. So we organized, we donated, we called our representatives daily, while norms were eroded, while children were stolen from their parents and locked up in cages. And in moments when it became too much, when our outrage boiled over and we confronted the monsters implementing these policies, we were scolded. We were told to be civil. We were told to wait, that our moment would come. Well, November did come. We voters mobilized a historic landslide, the largest number of Democrats elected to office since just after Watergate in 1974. Then Robert Mueller finished his investigation, and Congress had a playbook, a blueprint to finally hold this administration accountable for its many crimes and abuses. Which brings us to today. The 116th Congress has been in power for 263 days. 263 days to investigate the most corrupt, the most criminal president in history, and use the tools that our Constitution arms them with. Their mandate was clear, but the leadership we elected is abdicating its duties.
Shame!
Do your job! 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 Do your job!
This is not a hard decision, but for 263 days now, many of them have made the wrong one. By failing to act, Congress is complicit in every act of corruption, in every human rights abuse, and in every institution that is permanently marred by their cowardice. But once again, we are told to be patient. In fact, now we are told that impeachment has already begun, that they somehow started this process quietly and we somehow just didn't notice.
No impeachment light.
Well, impeachment is not supposed to be quiet. It is supposed to be loud, public, and televised.
Yes.
That's right.
And happening.
And happening.
And not just Fox News.
Speaker Pelosi says she will support impeachment if the majority of Americans support it. Well, we can't build support for impeachment if people don't know what is happening.
That's right.
Our major battles should not be taking place in closed hearings or buried in legal briefs. If our government is truly by the people need to hear the case and see the evidence. And we deserve to know where each and every one of our representatives stands. If the House impeaches Donald Trump, will the Senate convict? I don't know. But we need to force each and every one of them to take a stance on the record. Any senator who puts party over country to protect this president will need to live with the political and social consequences of that vote for the rest of their lives. Resistance is not futile. It is all we have. We are fighting for our lives, and we are done being patient. Impeach Donald Trump now.
Thank you so much, Ian. To remind you all, this is a people's hearing calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump. And in this fight, we have had a number of brave members of Congress who have said it's not, who have been the few who said it's never politically inconvenient to do the right thing. And I am so honored to invite one of those brave members of Congress here with us now, Congressman Al Green.
Let me thank Alexandra.
Hi there. Alexandra.
As you know, Alexandra means helper of humankind. And this is Alex, and your name is a variation of this, and it means helper of humankind. And I want to thank all of the people who are here today. My statement will be very brief. We are at the crossroads of accountability.
Yes.
Either we will hold the president accountable, or we will be held accountable. Congress has to act.
Yes.
And for those who believe in polls, I would have you know that there's a Quinnipiac poll from July of this year. And it indicates that more than 51% of the people believe that the president is a racist. Yeah. The American people are speaking. They believe that this president should be removed from office. It's my belief that as a member of Congress, I have a duty to facilitate the removal of the president from office. This is why on 3 separate occasions, I have brought articles of impeachment to the floor of the House of Representatives.
Thank you.
I initially made the appeal for impeachment. I stood alone. The last time, 95 members of the House voted to advance the articles of impeachment. And for those who say polls matter, here's what I say. I'm so pleased that Dr. King didn't take a poll. I'm so pleased that John Lewis didn't take a poll before they crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I'm pleased that a beautiful woman, Rosa Parks, didn't take a poll before she took a seat on that bus. Polls can drive you, or you can drive the polls. You drive the polls by showing people evidence of what you believe to be the case. If we do not present evidence to the people, then people will be driven by opinions that, generally speaking, are inaccurate. So it's time for us to step up and understand that if we don't hold the president accountable, we will be held accountable. Finally, on that point, holding the president accountable, time is running out. At some point, the public is going to turn on Congress. Trump will be impeached, in my opinion. But if we don't do this rather quickly, the public is going to turn on us. And we are going to find that those who went to the polls and gave us this great majority are going to be very disappointed. And they are not going to side with us when we did not side with justice. With that said, if I may, I'd like to answer a few questions from the press.
Congressman Green,
Yes.
so we have to do this quickly. What's your specific time frame? Question one. And the second question is the letter that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi issued yesterday. Do you see a significant shift in her thinking based on your reading of the letter, or do you still think she's focused on investigations and not impeachment?
My time frame is immediately, if not sooner. I think we have waited too long.
Way too long.
When the president decided that he would fire Mr. Comey, who was investigating his campaign, and then he went on national TV at prime time and confessed that he was thinking about the Russia issue at the time. That was a time for us to start our action. So that has been now many, many months. And so we are too late. We should start right away with impeachment. With reference to any messages that have been sent, I think that until we say we are impeaching, we have not said enough. We have to say we are impeaching. we have to use the word impeach. It is unthinkable that the framers of the Constitution would provide a remedy for an out-of-control president who has used invidious discrimination to harm our society. It is unthinkable that we wouldn't use Article 2, Section 4, which is the remedy. The framers has given us the remedy, and by the way, it's the only remedy available to us. The Justice Department is not going to indict. The Justice Department is not going to prosecute unless the president leaves office. So given that the Justice Department won't be acting, only Congress can take action. It is time for the Congress to do its job and start the impeachment process, not an inquiry. The impeachment process should be started. And once we start, the public will come along. But I also believe this. If the public doesn't come along, we have a duty and a responsibility to the Constitution. We have a duty to this generation to make sure that we don't leave him a country wherein the president does not respect the three branches of government and the balance of power that's supposed to exist. We owe him a future wherein the President of the United States respects the Congress of the United States and its duty to have oversight over the executive branch.
That's right.
That is the least we can do, and it is most important for this young man that we do it. Well, thank you. I'm sorry for the long answer.
Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What sort of impact do you think that the whistleblower complaint has had on leadership? Is it pressuring them more to take steps towards impeachment proceedings?
As you well know, some people make history, and history will make some people. I think this is being driven by history now. I really believe that this is beyond the control of those who wish to control it. I think that we are at a point where people who probably don't want to do it will find themselves moving in the direction of doing it simply because there's just too much evidence to ignore. You cannot ignore the latest evidence, which has to do with the president speaking to a foreign leader, and we have a person who's a whistleblower that the Congress can't have any lawful communication with. This is unthinkable. When persons will come before the Judiciary Committee, the powerful Judiciary Committee, and literally thumb their noses to the Judiciary Committee, the president sends a letter indicating that the person shouldn't give certain testimony. This is unthinkable. We have a president who does not respect the oversight duties of the Congress. So, my dear friend, I think that history is piloting this now. And I think that regardless as to what we want to do, I think this is going to go to the point of the president being impeached. I have a regret as I say this. Here's my regret. That the president is not being investigated for his bigotry. We have not had one witness called with reference to his racism, to his xenophobia, his Islamophobia, his homophobia. Not one witness has been called. The president can be impeached for bigotry that he is infusing into policy.
That's right.
And if we impeach this president for his bigotry, we will deal with America's original sin. Our original sin was hate in the form of racism. We have the opportunity to strike a blow against racism by impeaching this president for the bigotry he's infusing into policy that's harmful to society. So I stand with these people, these young people especially. Some of them are younger than others, but they're all young.
Hello.
But I want you to know I stand with them, and I will tell you, when this young lady was speaking and the other young lady, I literally had tears to well in my eyes because I know that the country's going to be in good hands. This country is a great country, and these young people have the courage to do what some of us have been elected to do and will not do. I know the country's in good hands. The court of public opinion has been convened, and the court of public opinion has found the president guilty of impeachable offense offenses, and the sentence is removal from office. Any others before I depart? Yes.
Have you noticed a market shift in sentiment in the caucus since the whistleblower complaint came out?
I think that the momentum was building prior to this. I think every incident adds more to the evidence such that people are being moved toward saying the word impeach. There are some people who have not said the word itself, but I think that it has been of help. But I think that we've been building, and I don't know whether this is the last straw, the one that's going to break the proverbial camel's back. But I do know that it is a straw that's having an impact. Well, friends, thank you very much. God bless you.
Leadership.
Thank you so much.
Leadership, thank you.
All right. This is a future president, I'll have you know.
Thank you so much, Congressman Al Green. And I'm so pleased to invite Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
I'm actually here joined by my sister Layla and some of her friends. Come on up, come on up. These are folks in my district that I wanted to stand here next to me.
Hi, sweetie.
How are you? I just want to thank all of you so much for your incredible courage to put our country first, to put the fact that our humanity is at stake and so much more. But as you know, as a lawyer and as somebody that's so proud to uphold the United States Constitution, even more and more, Chairman Al Green and I see what is at stake. And that's why day after day we find out that the president and his administration is engaged in unconstitutional, unlawful activity. So we say enough is enough.
That's right.
The president believes he can act above the law. He's truly behaving with gross lawlessness, this king-like behavior. It is my job, our job, the people's job, for every elected representative in Congress to hold him accountable.
Yes.
That accountability moves forward with impeachment. And I can tell you, Grace Lee Boggs, a Detroit activist and from my district, used to say, movement, transformative change doesn't happen because it starts in the United States Congress. It starts with people like you on the streets demanding it. He is already asking more and more foreign governments to find information about his political opponents. He is jeopardizing and endangering our democracy every single day. We have a whistleblower complaint that was filed by a member of the intelligence community, and the director of the intelligence blocked it from being shared to the United States Congress, violating the law. Enough is enough. Today people are demanding action, holding their own impeachment proceedings, and time for a swift action, as you all know. And enough is enough. And I can tell you, as a person that is new to this chamber, right, that I have never seen anything like this. And I asked my colleagues, have you ever seen this blatant disregard of congressional subpoenas? Have you ever seen the fact that we've held not one, but almost 3 or 4 members of his cabinet in contempt? So when is it enough? When do we say this king-like, dictator-type, lawlessness approach of the President of the United States? When do we say enough is enough and we have to hold him accountable? And the way we do that is through impeachment. So I want to thank, before I got here, Congressman Al Green led the way. He talked about it when no one else wanted to talk about it. And here I come with balls of fire, leading the way and saying, well, he's right, and we need to hold him accountable. So thank you all so much for demanding justice and demanding that, again, we put our country first. With that, we have our incredible Congressman Cohen, if you want to go ahead.
As you can see, I just got here from the airport. We're doing all we can on judiciary. Impeachment and the Constitution is our Jones, and everybody on that committee really wants to do something. We're doing all we can. There are impediments to what we're trying to do, but we're fighting to go forward in the courts. We're fighting to go forward with exigent circumstances on a legal basis through the Congress. And if what we've seen and reports are true about what's happened with Giuliani and Kyiv, we might have another article of impeachment. Thank you for your good work. Appreciate you very much. And I'm going to go to my office.
Thank you.
Cohen. Thank you so much. As I said before, there have been these brave members of Congress who have stood forward in this moment and said it is never an inconvenient time to do what is right. So thank you so much for your bravery. And it's been a pleasure to see, so many members of Congress join Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, Congressman Al Green. This year, we now have a majority of House Democrats that say Trump must be impeached. But I want to make no mistake, what's the difference between right now versus January? The difference is the movement that we have built. It has been thousands and thousands of people across the country who have taken action, gone to their members of Congress offices, shown up at town halls, called into their offices and showed up in the street and held signs and raised their voices and said, defend our Constitution, defend the American people, impeach this lawless president. And it is because of us that we have seen the increase of support from members of Congress. But the fight is not over. The next couple months in this fight are the most critical. Now is the time for us to grow this movement. Donald Trump can and will only be impeached by the people. The best support that we can have for Congresswoman Tlaib and Congressman Green and Cohen is to have a massive movement. We must raise our voices, get onto the streets. And so this fall, I invite every single American in this country, if you are ready to take responsibility for our future, if you are against the rise of white nationalism that is flirted with by the White House, if you are against the abuses of power committed by this administration, I invite you to join the movement. And you can sign up at bythepeople.us/call. Take the pledge to take action. And you can see the letters for that right here. I'm not going to spell it.
Do you want me to?
Do you want to spell it? Yes, please do, Alex. Let's spell it out.
bythepeople.us/call.
Will you take the pledge of action with me?
Yeah.
If Alex is willing to take action right now, then I think you should too.
Thank you.
Congresswoman, we have seen a change in tone from Democratic leaders. Speaker Pelosi sending this letter demanding a response by Thursday. Why is that not enough? She clearly seems to be hinting that impeachment is now a possibility.
It's a hint.
Yes, she is.
No more delay. Well, first of all, I think it's going to require a lot of our voices to be asking for leadership, for the courage to go ahead and have a vote. Once again, the majority of our Democratic caucus supports impeachment. They support the rule of law, and they took an oath, just like both of us did, to uphold the United States Constitution. They're doing their due diligence, and because of work in their own districts during the break, you saw so many people hearing them. What are you doing about the lawlessness that is happening in the White House? What are you doing about the fact that you have a president making decisions on profits for his own businesses versus what's best interest of the American people? And so it's going to be our responsibility, many of us outside of the halls of Congress, to demand a vote.
Enough is enough!
The question is really, is Congress doing enough? Because Congress is bigger than any one person. We all took the same oath of office. We all have the same duty and responsibility. It is our job to move forward when there are impeachable offenses. And I genuinely believe that the president's going to be impeached. I do believe it.
I believe so.
I think that we are finding that history is pushing this. It's being driven by history. There are people who don't want to see it happen, but they are being forced to participate in the event itself. So I think that we're on the right path. I think that we're moving too slowly. I think that we should have done it sooner. And I think that the longer we wait, the greater the possibility that Congress is going to be held accountable. The president will be held accountable. He's going to be impeached. I don't know what the Senate will do. But the longer we wait, the greater the likelihood that Congress too will be held accountable.
Right.
We're at the
Amen.
crossroads of accountability.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Tlaib and Congressman Green.
Yes,
Thank
you.
you.
And as you're leaving, may I just say this? I wouldn't be standing here if Dr. King had allowed the movement to be driven by polls.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
If he had said, Andy, what do the polls say? Do we march on Washington?
Right.
I wouldn't be standing here. We cannot allow polls to drive the great issues of our time. The great issues of our time and of all time have never been driven by polls. They've been driven by a righteousness, a belief that you put people above politics and principles above party. And if we are going to allow the desire to save a few people who are in Congress, to allow them to stay in power at the expense of the suffering of the masses of people who are being discriminated against, the masses of people who are being harmed by virtue of this president's behavior, then shame on us. That is putting politics above principle. We cannot do this. This is our day of reckoning.
That's right.
Either we impeach or we are going to find ourselves having to account for our lack of action when there was a clarion call from the world to do something about this president, not just this country.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman, Congressman.
Oh, we the people. Yes.
Trump will be impeached.
By the people.
Trump will be impeached.
By the people.
Trump will be impeached.
By the people.
I'm so grateful that our members of Congress were willing to join us today, responding to the movement that has built, responding to the movement that has called on Congress to fulfill their duty. And for as long as Congress continues to allow Trump to abuse power, then our democracy and our people are under attack. If Congress does not move on impeachment this fall, then I believe those in House leadership should resign. Congress, you are on notice. Impeach or resign.
Impeach or resign. Impeach or resign. Impeach or resign. Impeach or resign.
And now we're going to remind you all why it is that we're here today, and that is because our love of country and our love of community. Every single one of us that is standing up here is a symbol, is a reflection, is here on behalf of our family, our community members, our cities, our states, and our planet. We are here because of our love of people and our love of country and humanity. And so we want to end with this song, the one at the top of the list. You'll sing along with me, okay, Alex? Okay. And I got Lakshmi here to help me. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I have not come here alone. I carry my people in my bones. I have not come here alone. If you listen, you can hear them in my soul. Trump will be impeached
by the people.
Trump will be impeached
By the people.
Trump will be impeached
By the people.
Thank you, Congressman.
You're wonderful. Can I get all of our lovely folks
We had
here
3 Alexes up there.
to transition to off the street, kind of finish things up. So you can feel free to put the signs down. We're going to start.